Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. Today we're going to be talking about gutters, and we'd like to thank Amardeep Sinai for liking and sharing the podcast. We also spoke to Raf from Kukun, and this is a free platform that helps homeowners with their remodeling projects and picking a professional.
Are you going to spell it?
Yes, I will. So hold on. So stay tuned for that. In ancient Egypt and Greece, the first gutters that were on buildings were sloped down to gargoyles or lion-shaped spouts to shoot the water away from the building. Isn't that cool? So the Temple of Zeus in Greece had 102 marble lion heads that spouted water off of the roof and gutter system.
They should bring that back. That looks cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, why would you stop that? And the word gargoyle originally just meant a spout to move water away from a building, but the first spouts were all these grotesque beasts. And so that gargoyle came to be the term for kind of an ugly creature.
Nice.
You know why they put up gargoyles?
No.
To protect the building from evil spirits.
Oh, wait, I did know that.
If you're thinking about replacing your gutters, there's two basic shapes for homes. You have K and half round, or sometimes they'll call it a U shape. And the K style, it has a flat back and a flat bottom, and then the front has a carved shape. It almost looks like crown molding. Half round is just a smooth half round tube or a U shape. And for most homes, 5-inch and 6-inch is the standard size, and 5 is probably the most common. Your downspouts, you're going to have either a 2-inch by 3-inch or a 3-inch by 4-inch for most homes. And they're either going to be round or squared off, you know, like kind of boxy shaped.
Right.
With 5-inch gutters, usually you're going to have a 2-inch by 3-inch downspout. For 6-inch gutters, you'd want to get 3-inch by 4-inch downspouts. And then if you want less clogging, a lot of people will take a 5-inch gutter and put a 3-inch by 4-inch downspout on it. So it's going to get clogged less. You've got especially in a storm, you're going to have much better water movement.
Which
so
is more popular, the K or the U shape?
Usually K. And especially if you're putting it up yourself, it's the easiest to put on because the hangers, you know, it's much easier to put these hangers that clip onto the top.
That's why we're doing this topic.
K. The most popular material for gutters is aluminum, vinyl, steel, and copper. And aluminum is the most popular throughout the country. And it's good for homeowners because it's lightweight, it's easy to install, it's pretty inexpensive, it won't rust, and it's not bothered by cold. It comes in a variety of colors, and it can be painted.
Ooh,
so it's very versatile. And you can order custom links. So in the store, you're going to get 10-foot sections. And like around here in the Chicago area, for a 10-foot section, it's only about $7 per section. So it's pretty inexpensive. And you can also order custom links if you want a seamless gutter. So rather than having couplings to group these, 10-foot sections together, you can just buy, it's going to cost you more, but you can buy it per length. And then there's a lot of companies that will actually cut it for you and drop it off by your house so that you can install
it too?
Well, they will, but you can buy it and then install it yourself and save some labor.
It's all done.
Yes,
be nice.
That's the best. That's why we'll talk to the Kukun people. Well, what's wild about having a pro install it is on their truck, they're going to have this machine that has this huge roll of flat aluminum. And so they'll measure a length they need. They'll turn on the machine, and it goes through this, and it actually shapes it into that K shape right out of the machine, and then they'll custom cut it so there'll be no seams.
Nice.
You can get vinyl gutters, and these are very easy to install yourself because they're very lightweight. They're very easy to cut. And I've seen 10-foot sections as low as $5.
Really?
They don't rust, and the sections snap together. Some of the vinyl gutters actually have couplings with rubber gaskets, so you don't have to use any adhesives to put them together. The problem is, over time, vinyl's damaged by sunlight, and then they can crack in cold climates because they have a very high expansion rate. And then they can be damaged if you have heavy ladders and you're leaning it on the vinyl gutters too. Yeah. So those are kind of some of the downsides. And they have a couple different varieties. So the thicker the vinyl, the better they are. You can get steel gutters, which are very strong, so they're going to hold a ladder laying against it. The drawback is that over time they rust, and then the sections either needed to be soldered together or attached with sealants and screws.
That sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, and then usually you're going to want to paint them occasionally to slow down corrosion, and they're heavy. Like if you're trying to install these yourself, they're pretty difficult for the average homeowner to put up themselves. For a very decorative look, you can get copper, and these are very long-lasting. They're corrosion-resistant. They're going to build that patina over time, so kind of a unique look.
I've never seen copper gutters.
Yeah, like in New England, some of these old mansions, they just get a beautiful look. They're more expensive, and they're going to give you a...
Yeah, I doubt you're going to get this for like $5 a...
Right, and it's usually a pro putting these up because they're usually half round. They take special brackets to put it up.
You have to solder it?
Yes, and the seams, you're going to solder them together. So definitely more difficult for a homeowner to put up. If you're putting up your own gutters and you're trying to figure out what size to get, there's a bunch of calculators you can look at online. And so you're going to calculate the roof area. You need to know the pitch of your roof, and then you're going to look up the maximum rainfall in your area, and you're going to plug this in, and you're going to get a suggestion of what size you should get.
Right.
But for most parts of the U.S., 5-inch gutters usually will do the job. With a 6-inch gutter, you're going to get more capacity, but a lot of the professionals are saying in cold climates, the weight of ice in those gutters are usually a problem.
Yeah.
And then with your downspouts, you want a downspout about every 30 feet with a 5-inch gutter, and you're going to be using a 2-inch by 3-inch generally. If you have lengths of 5-inch gutter that are closer to 40 feet long, then they say move up to a 3-inch by 4-inch downspout, and it's going to handle more water, and it's also going to be less likely to clog. If you have a length of gutter that's 40 feet or longer, what they suggest is you want to slope down from the middle of that length and have downspouts on each end.
What do you mean slope down?
So you want to have, we're going to be talking about sloping your gutter down to your downspouts, but if you have a very long run of gutter and it's, let's say it's 40 feet or longer, you actually want to kind of have it peak in the, you do want to have it peak in the center, and then you're going to slope down toward both ends, and you're going to have a downspout on each end, rather than trying to slope this 40 foot or longer gutter all the way down, because you need to keep dropping it. So it's going to look better on your house and be more functional if you peak it in the center and go out towards the ends.
I guess I just thought they were all just level.
Unless it's 40 feet or longer. Before you start your project, you're going to want to create a drawing of your layout. So you want to know exactly the lengths you're going to need, how much gutter, how many elbows, how many corners, inside and outside corners. If you're using special couplings to go to your downspout, if you're going from your downspout right to an outlet, you're going to have to cut a hole for those outlets and those little outlet pieces attached to your downspout. Every downspouts going to need 3 elbows. So you want to lay all this out so that you make sure that you have all the parts. You're going to need straps to put your downspout to the wall of the,
So you need a great list.
Right. Yes. Yeah, nice drawing, a nice list to go through it. And then all the parts you're going to need, depending on the type of gutter. If you're using a aluminum gutter, you're going to need sheet metal screws, you're going to need the hangers. I like the hangers with the screws built in. But, just list everything out, do your drawing. It's going to be a lot easier. And then if you decide to have seamless gutters and special order it, you're going to want to have those links all laid out.
Right.
And then once you have your drawing and you know all the parts you're going to get, you need stuff to put it all together. So you're going to want a hacksaw, crimping tool, possibly tin snips, a hole saw, a drill. You definitely need a chalk line, a level, and ladders. With your ladders, a lot of people will either use a step ladder if they have a tall one, or extension ladders. With the extension ladders, you need to have something that's going to be short enough to get under where you're going. Because it's difficult with a standard extension ladder for, a lot of homeowners have these. And so the first section is a standard height. Right. And if it's taller than what you're working on, it's very difficult because you're going to need this just under. So a couple highly rated ladders. One was the Werner Platform Podium Ladder. And so this you walk up to, and on the top step, it's a big wide platform. Right. So it's almost like a small scaffolding that you can stand on. So that does a great job. You can get the Extend and Climb ladder. So it's XTEND, and then it's like plus climb ladder. And this closes down to like 30 inches. It collapses, and it's a telescoping ladder. So you pull it out a foot at a time, and so you can extend this the exact length you need. So you can keep this right under the height of the gutter so that it's easy to apply. And what's interesting about this is something, if you had vaulted ceilings, you can use this extension ladder inside and out. So that's very convenient.
Ladders scare me.
Well, what's crazy is they say there's over 100,000 injuries a year directly related to ladders.
Yeah, because people don't use them right.
Right. So if you're thinking about buying a ladder, you really need to look at the weight limits because it's designed for a specific weight, especially for extension ladders. As they're angled against something, they really flex. And you want to make sure that you have the right weight limits.
Well, what are you carrying up, too, with you?
Yeah, exactly. A very important consideration to think about. And then a big question that a lot of people have is how far away, like what angle should I have?
Because I think people just kind of throw it up there.
Yeah, and sometimes it's too close and it falls backwards, or it's too wide and then it flexes like crazy. So OSHA recommends that the foot of the ladder should be 1 foot away from the wall for every 4 feet of working height. So if you have a 16-foot extension ladder,
right,
you'd want that bottom to be 4 feet away from the house.
So you should probably measure.
Yeah, there you go. Tape measure onto the list. A nice accessory is a stabilizer bar for an
I was
extension.
going to say a big pillow or maybe a net.
So these stabilizer bars, this attaches to the top of an extension ladder, and it's wide, so it's U-shaped, and now it has these big rubberized pads that sit against the wall, and so the ladder can't twist. So it really holds it in place and distributes the weight. Much easier if you're reaching and trying to hold this gutter and maybe pushing against the ladder. That does a nice job. So the most common gutters that a homeowner is probably going to install are the aluminum case style. Once you have your old gutters pulled down, you want to inspect and repair any of the wood on the soffit and fascia that needs to be solid. And then you need to mark the fascia board with a chalk line so that you have your slope. So you're going to pick the high side. So you're going to decide what's high, and then you're going to be sloping down to where you want your downspout. When you pick your high side, you're going to take a nail and you're going to put it in a 1/2 inch below the shingles. And then you're going to measure up from the bottom of the fascia and subtract a 1/4 inch for every 10 feet along that length. And then at the end of that run, you're going to drive a nail, and now you're going to snap a chalk line between those two, and that's going to give you your line that you're going to run the top of your gutter down. And then I would just double check that with a level to make sure it's
sloped.
It's sloped, right? Because if you're measuring off the bottom of your fascia, I mean, it's possible that might not be level.
Right.
So just double check it with a level. I found it's easier if you build your sections on the ground and then lift it up to attach rather than trying to build it up in the air.
Yeah, you think?
And then inside and outside corners usually have an overlap, so the gutter's going to overlap. So when you're measuring your length of gutter too, take into account how long the inside or outside corners are, because they're usually going to be 2 or 3 inches on each side of that corner, and you're going to overlap your gutter into it. And then you want to lap all the seams about 2 inches or more, and you want to lay this into a bead of gutter sealant. And then to connect 2 links together, you're either going to use a slip coupling, or you're just going to overlap them with the top lap on the high side working down to the low side. That way the water's going to flow over that into the gutter below it.
So all this is kind of important, right?
Right, yeah. Planning. Again, planning. You're going to use tin snips to cut lengths of aluminum to size, and then many pros recommend using a rivet gun to join them together. You can also use self-tapping sheet metal screws. I would use stainless steel, or get the painted screws that match your gutter. And then wherever you're putting a downspout, you're going to have to put in one of these outlets. It's generally a 2 3/8 inch hole for a 2 inch by 3 inch downspout, but again, check your outlet and check the size they recommend. And if you're going through metal, get a metal cutting hole saw. And then the gutter hangers that have the attached screws and they snap onto the front and the back of the top of the gutter are very easy to use, and they're some of the strongest to put it up, because if you use the spikes with the ferrules, they tend to loosen over time. So I really like the screws. So this is a good project to have a helper.
Yeah, or several.
And a couple ladders. So we're going to lift this all up. You're going to start at the high side and line up the gutter to your chalk line. At the very end, you're going to screw it in place. You're going to work toward the low end, and these hangers should be about every 2 feet apart. If you live in a cold climate where you get a lot of snow, then I would space these hangers about 1.5 feet apart.
Right.
And then to prevent water from getting behind the gutters, you can run aluminum flashing under the shingles, and they have this special, a lot of companies will call this gutter apron. So you can buy this L-shaped aluminum, and this flashing will sit under the shingles, and it's going to go over into the back of the gutter so that water doesn't get onto the fascia and rot your wood.
Well, have you ever seen somebody that hung their gutters wrong and just when it's pouring outside and
it
just a sheet of water that's
it just
coming
shoots
down?
right over it. Yeah, just completely misses it too. Once your gutter's in place, you're going to want to connect your downspouts or cut for your downspouts, and you're either going to be using a small section that had an outlet that you're screwing your downspout into, or you've drilled a hole and dropped in one of these outlets. And whenever you put these sections together, you're always using some type of sealant in there, like for that outlet.
Right.
And for the downspouts, you're going to use one elbow facing the house, and then you're holding that up, and then you're going to hold the other elbow against the house, and then you're going to measure that distance. So we're going to cut a small piece of the downspout to connect them. And you want to overlap about 1.5 inches into each elbow.
Okay.
And then you're going to have a crimped end and a non-crimped end. So the crimped end is always going to, that side is always going to be down. And so it's going to slide, as the water's flowing, it's going to flow from that one part into the crimped area, and then it'll go into the next section, and it's going to flow without getting into any of the seams.
I could see this as a problem if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen it done many times. And why is it leaking? Why is it always leaking? And then if you're using a hacksaw to do all this cutting, I really like the high-tension hacksaws. They work the best. They work the fastest. And you want to use a hacksaw blade with 32 teeth per inch, and it's the best for thin metal like this. If you're going to have a lot of downspouts, you might want to buy a crimping tool. They're not that expensive, but if you don't want to buy one, you can also just use a long needle nose pliers, and let's say we have a section of downspout. On one end that's going to be facing down, you're going to take a long needle nose pliers, grab it, and just kind of twist it and keep moving it, maybe 1 inch or so, and just keep twisting, and you're going to crimp that end so it slides into the next section.
Seems like a lot more work.
Yeah, but you don't buy the tool if you already have a needle nose pliers. So I never bought a crimping tool when I was doing most of my remodeling, when I was first investing in real estate. For the downspouts, you're generally going to use sheet metal screws because they're easy to remove if there's ever a clog, whereas on like the main gutters themselves, you're going to get less problems with debris or catching leaves if you use rivets.
Right.
For all of your seams or end caps or any sections that you're putting together, you want to use some type of gutter sealant. And some of the top rated were Geocel, it's Geocel, and Through the Roof Sealant by Sashco. And very highly rated were any of the sealants made of nitrile rubber, and they were recommended over silicone, because if you miss a spot and then you see a little leak and you have to go back, silicone doesn't stick to silicone, and it leaves that oily residue. So a lot of the professionals were saying, we don't like to use anything silicone-based just because it's hard to patch a small hole.
Right.
And then if you want to be super fancy, if you don't want to use downspouts, you can get rain chains.
What is that?
And this was developed in Japan hundreds of years ago. So they would replace the downspouts with these decorative chains, and that's the way water would follow these chains straight down into big bowls, or they'd have barrels to store water for future use. So they're pretty interesting. So they have little decorative bowls or cups or chains or decorative shapes, and it's at the end of the gutter, and water just kind of splashes down over this, and it kind of keeps it going straight down rather than spraying around, but it's just a little more decorative.
It seems a lot more messy, too.
And then one thing to think about, if you are planning on redoing your gutters and you have a gardens, think about a rain barrel, because it's nice to put all your downspouts into the rain barrels now while you're planning this.
Right.
Once you have your gutters up, there's a variety of gutter guards you can use to help keep leaves and debris out of your gutters. So you can get screens or a fine mesh. They have some that have slotted metal strips that are actually, it's almost like metal going over 3/4 of the gutter, and then it drops into these slots. So the water, especially on just a normal rain, the water goes in, but leaves are caught on this. And then once it dries out and the wind blows, that tends to move the leaves off. And then there's a lot of reviews, pro and con, on these. So even with people that loved gutter guards, they said you definitely have to check them and clean them occasionally because, stuff just gets in it. I don't care what you put on there. And then especially with very thin pine needles or seeds or really small debris.
Yeah, nothing's going to help that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure for some situations they do a nice job.
Well, it's not a bad habit to get into every year just to check your gutters,
a couple
spring
times.
and fall.
Absolutely. I think it's a great routine. You can also get those foam things that fit into the gutter themselves. Right. It just fills the gutter and then, leaves some things just sit on the top of it. And then, again, the idea is once it's dry, wind will blow it off. And then people who really love these gutter guards said that one common theme I was seeing is, man, it really solved our problem with birds and rodents building nests in our gutters. If you have a block downspout, you can remove it if you use screws and then just shake it out, use a hose on it to clean it. Or you can use a plumber's snake. So those flat rods you can push up from the bottom or from the top, push it straight down, and again use a hose to flush it out. Those plastic gutter scoops really do a nice job. So you can pick these up at the hardware store, and they're very effective. I would have a 5-gallon bucket so that I can scoop and put debris in it as I work along, rather than throwing it all over the ground. And then you can, again, rinse down the gutters with a hose and get one of those high-pressure nozzles. It does a really nice job. You can also get those attachments that connect to your leaf blower, and it goes up and over the gutter.
I've seen these.
And then you just walk along and just blow stuff all over.
And then if it's a blower vac, you could suck it all up.
Boom. There you go.
Do you have anything else to add?
I would say if you're in a warm climate, vinyl is considered the easiest for homeowners to install themselves. Aluminum is easy and good for all climates. The hangers with the screws are much better than the spike and ferrules. I would use a gutter seal on all couplings, elbows, end caps, and outlets. And then anything that's visible, I would smooth that bead with my finger. I would use rivets instead of screws wherever I can. It's going to be less debris getting caught on it. And then the 3-inch by 4-inch downspout, you're going to have less clogs if you move up to a little bit bigger downspout. And then make sure that the gutters slope a 1/4 inch for every 10 feet toward your downspout. I spoke to Raph about Kukun, and he told us a little bit about his site.
Raph, how you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Real good, thank you.
Good.
Cindy and I heard about your website, Kukun, and we were hoping you'd be able to explain a little bit about it.
Sure.
And I guess the first thing is, how did you come up with Kukun?
Well, I mean, the idea is that we all build homes. We all build a nest at the end of the day. I mean, that's how we always perceive it. It's the one place we resort to when we're not feeling good, when we're tired. This is basically your nest, and Kukun is another word for a nest. So that's what it started with. And the name Kukun, as it should be spelled, was taken. So we thought, well, we'll just play on it. And we used the letter K because it has an architectural look. And so that's how we came up with the whole thing.
That's funny. So it's actually spelled Kukun?
That's correct.
And your website is mykukun.com. So it's mykukun.com.
That is correct.
So what's the key things that a homeowner will get on your website?
So we basically take a look at the journey of a homeowner when they do a home renovation project, and we try to reflect that. So we think there are 6 steps that every homeowner goes through. First, they are visually inspired by something, and it's stylistic. Then you try to gather information, so let's just say you Google stuff. So we say inspiration, information. Then we say, your first question is, how much does it cost? Can I afford it? And if I can afford it, maybe can I get a loan? So we added a tool that says that basically we act like a construction company online. We take the construction books and we try to simplify them in a way where an average homeowner can estimate roughly the project, to replace the whole idea that I have to call a contractor, bring them over to my house, and trying to get an answer after 1 week. And frankly, you're still not at the point of hiring them, so you don't feel obligated, but you have to actually call a contractor. So we did that. We added an ROI tool to kind of show where you live. If you live in a dense area, does that bring the right value for your home? What does it do to the value? So we look at comp data, like your other homes that were sold, if there's permits around you, and that's how you do it. So that was the third step. We start with inspiration, information, and then determining the cost. Then the fourth step is I want to hire, and I want to hire at the right price. And so what we've done is we kind of looked at how we hire today, and I look at my own personal experience. Often it's always through word of mouth, through somebody you know. You rarely pick up the yellow pages, and some people go use other sites. But in general, I think, especially if the project is sensitive, you want to get somebody whom somebody had worked with and can vouch for them. And we thought that the best way to see that, to take that from that a very personal, kind of a small experience limited to the folks that you know, to transfer it into, well, if this contractor has permits, those permits are actual homes, and thus these are references. We collected data on their permits, and we kind of say, the best way for you to see is to see the guys around you, see who has permits, projects similar to yours. You can drive by that house. You can probably, if you're bold enough, knock on that door and say, hey, how was your experience?
Right.
Right? I mean, we believe that permits tell a lot about contractors, and good contractors that show up right there. So that's what we've done. We spent a lot of time collecting that information from public sites, which, as you can imagine, is not a simple experience, and sorting through it. We also went as far as looked at the concept of reviews, and we basically came to the conclusion that reviews they serve a very limited purpose. It's good to read them. Reality is that the majority of them are positive anyway. The negative ones are always worked behind the scenes and removed. And so, but at the same time, you also start to see extreme commentary. You start to see folks that will say really super positive stuff or really super negative stuff. And when we look at statistics, that data, what we found is that those are really rare, and that the majority of the reviews fall into the middle, or on the positive side, but not super positive and not super negative. And that's the reality. So we did what we call the sentiment analysis. So we basically collect all these reviews from all the different sites, and we look for keywords such as pricing, delivered on demand, quality of work. And as we sorted through that data, we started to see that there were a lot of comments about aesthetics, for example. And so with that, basically, we kind of said, how do I aggregate these reviews into one thing that a homeowner can take a look and say, this guy did okay on pricing, did great on quality, so on and so forth. So you get one place, you don't have to read 100 reviews, and it sort of filters out the extreme, right?
Interesting.
So basically, that's what we do with finding a contractor. And then we added this, and I'm sorry, I'm explaining the whole thing. So now I found these contractors, and they all seem quite vetted, good references, good permits, good reviews. Now, I get 3 bids from them. Let's just say I talk to 2 or 3, and most of us will ask for 2 or 3 bids to kind of get a feeling for who's going to come at the best price. But the reality is it's so hard to compare those bids if you don't know construction.
Right.
And I remember my first one. We spent the whole week, of my wife and I, just to sift through that bid and just to kind of say, oh, this is how it's bucketed, and you start to feel it. Everyone will price it differently, and you can't really tell, why is this guy expensive, why is this guy cheap? And you don't know, is the cheap guy trying to get in? Is the expensive guy really expensive? And the reality is that there are both flavors, and good guys are not the cheap ones, right? And so we built a bidding system, which is that you structure your project through a quote request. The contractors, when they bid on your house, instead of giving you a Word and an Excel document that generate with their own way of doing it, we standardize how they bid your house. And so you start to kind of see apples to apples comparison for these bids.
Interesting, smart.
Yeah, and the beauty of that is that when a contractor bids on your house, he will put dates, he will put a start date, he'll put an end date, he will tell you what material he needs when, what the cost of that material, and the value of that is that if you choose a winner, then you can extract that calendar and put it on your calendar, right? So now you start to kind of see what the contractor is supposed to be doing on a weekly basis, what material needs to be bought when, and so you're also prepared to ask the right questions. And also, we're helping the contractors by kind of alerting them to the questions that the homeowner will be asking. So let's say you get an alert that he should be done with drywall. He's going to get that alert a week before you do. And so he's also proactively managing to look good, and you're proactively managing to stay on top of it, because we found that delays often happen for multiple reasons. One of them is they're compounded, meaning you don't know the first delay. You only know the last delay, but that's like a compounded delay, and so we're trying to kind of capture them as a singular instance. The same with material. People don't always order stuff on time, and then as a result, they arrive late, and then you'll cause a delay for the contractor and for the project. So we're trying to be proactive about organizing the whole space. So that's in a nutshell what we do for a homeowner. Sorry, quite lengthy, but I thought there was...
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
And you actually have reviews on the professionals?
So we don't have reviews ourselves. What we do is we look at the reviews at multiple sites. So we basically go and look at the internet and look at reviews for those contractors, and we collect that data.
Okay.
And then we run an algorithm through that data, and we try to look for keywords, how often were mentioned. We'll also tell you, is his presence is large or medium or small, meaning like,
I see.
right? Because reality, and we did this kind of analysis, we found that over close to about 80% of the permit data, the contractors that are associated with them don't even have a digital presence. So that means reviews are limited to folks who proactively create them, whether
Sure.
it's the contractor or the homeowners. But you're missing out on a whole market of solid contractors that have solid work history, and,
That's true.
and they're not really promoted that way. And so what we wanted to do is to show the reviews they exist, but if they don't, we'll show you the solid permit history. And I think that's all that counts at the end of the day.
Sure.
And spending
Interesting.
money on marketing at the end of the day,
Right.
that kind of creates two classes of contractors, the haves and have-nots. And,
Right.
there are some really good guys. I know one really solid contractor who doesn't have a presence on the internet, and he became a subcontractor over time just because he's not able to generate business for himself because he wasn't savvy enough to
Right.
kind of create it, and he needed to hire somebody to do it and all of that. So he preferred to eventually say, you know what, I'll become a subcontractor. But that's a shame.
Interesting.
That's a
Right.
shame because this guy was really reasonable in every possible way.
And on your site, you actually have a gallery of ideas. You have pictures to kind of inspire homeowners with some of the projects, what they could be doing.
That's correct.
And you also have tips and expert advice. So it's an interesting site.
Well, again, it's the whole concept of inspiration information. We believe that often the issue is that most of us don't know what we're getting into. I mean, I reflect on my first experience. You don't know, and you're trying to find out. And
Right.
if you go and Google it, you're going to find so much, and you can't put it together. So we're trying
Right. And good and bad.
Right.
Well, it's funny, when you do research, sometimes you don't know the quality of the information you're getting.
Exactly correct. And that's why we created the concept of the information as more of an academy type of thing. It says, I'm going to put information that's relevant, and it's going to be written in a logical, informative way, not sort of sensational kind of material, which there is a lot of. But it's supposed to empower the homeowner. That's really it. And that's what we're trying to do, is to empower the homeowner, but also I don't think we should ignore the contractors. I think there are a lot of great contractors that have been dismissed, and a lot of issues are actually caused by the homeowner, not necessarily the contractor. So we want to fix that too. And so you'll see a lot of the lessons learned, things that you should do and should not do. I think we're all tempted to always throw the contractor under the bus, but it's not fair all the time, to be fair.
Right.
And, to be fair, they're both. I made my mistakes, I reflect them and
Sure.
reflect on them, and we try to bring that to the table, try to be really fair as a platform to liberate that space for both parties.
Are there any other key things that you can pick up on the site?
Well, so I think you'll see soon we will be launching a bit of a shop, and the shop will focus a little bit on personalizing your home, meaning to bring in unique items at a reasonable price that kind of makes their home your home. I think beyond that, all of our tools are very straightforward. We're going to also launch a concierge service to help folks with with the use of the tools. We will do them. We'll help them find the right people. We'll tell them the difference between them. We will help them kind of do a bid. That's going to come out in 2 weeks. And eventually we want to also help contractors work with subcontractors. So we're doing almost the same experience for them. So that's going to come soon.
Interesting. And all you have to do is just sign up to use the site?
It depends what you want to do. So if you're just doing it for the estimation and ROI tool, you just have to give us your email. If you're trying to do a real bid where you actually want to share it with contractors and get them to bid, we need more. We need your address. We need stuff, and you need to be physically recognized, because what we'll do behind the scenes is we will help you find contractors. We'll help you vet those deals so we would need the information. Contractors are not going to be interested to respond to your bid if you're not a real person.
Right.
And so we will ask for stuff. We won't always share everything with the contractor. So let's just say there are two ways you can bid out your project. You can say, I know 2-3 contractors, and I'm going to share this bid request with them, and they'll go in. It's private. Or you can say, you know what, Kukun, help me find folks. And so in this case, we need more information. So we will need your zip code. We will need the scope and all that. So it all depends really on what you're trying to do. Bidding requires a lot more. Estimation doesn't require that much.
And your website again is mykukun.com. It's mykukun.com.
Exactly right. We hope people will find it very helpful. That was the intention, and that will continue to be our focus and concentration.
Well, I appreciate your time, Raf.
Thank you very much, JC.
Sounds like a great site.
Yeah, very interesting. They have a nice gallery of ideas. They have a blog with all types of tips and expert advice.
Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, the Spotify mobile app, and the Google Play Music mobile app.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our book, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
And you can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.
Thank you.